All right. So welcome everyone to the first episode of Blessing in Disguise 2020. So just for a little bit of background, if you haven't watched my first solo episode about where I provided a little bit of context, a background about this project, I will try to introduce this project to you a little bit. So this is going to be a series of conversations with people whose lives have been affected this year in one way or the other. And I think it's pretty safe to say that everyone in the world has been somehow affected by the situation this year, by the pandemic, by different political and social problems. And I've noticed that there are many people who have been struggling and are still struggling. Their mental health is maybe not in the best shape. They're really looking forward to seeing 2020 go away, and they want to just forget about it. And they're really looking forward to the next year. And it really got me thinking and reflecting about my own experience of this year and how I have been affected and how my life has been this year. And also I thought about different people that I worked with or I met, I talked to in different communities that have been also affected. But I've noticed they found something really positive. They found their blessings in their situations. It can be in their personal life, their business life, their work. It might be their health, their relationships. And they managed to actually find something that I'm really grateful for, that is going now really, really well, and they're using now moving forward. That probably wouldn't have happened if this year 2020 hasn't happened. So hopefully some people will get inspired, some people will find hope by watching this program, these episodes, these conversations. Okay, so today I'm bringing two really amazing humans, two women who I actually met this year, and I'm so grateful for meeting you, for our connections, and for our friendship and our relationships that we developed this year. So Amy is based in Vancouver. Amy Sangha. Really amazing human, inspiring, very cheerful, one of the most positive people I've met ever and this year, definitely. And Cheryl Smith, who is based in Scotland. Normally I will be actually speaking to one person at a time, but I just really felt inspired to bring Amy and Cheryl together because they are nurses, and their experiences, even though their experiences will be different in some way, but there are also some things that are similar. And I'm just really curious to hear your perspective on this year and about your individual experiences. Okay, so I'm not going to talk a lot about you, introduce you. I will let you introduce yourselves and share a little bit about you before we go on to talk about what happened this year. Okay, so Amy, would you like to start?
Sure. So my name is Amy Sangha. I am a nurse. I've been nursing for 20 years. I work at St. Paul's in Vancouver, and I actually became sick with COVID this year, and I won't go too much into that. I'll let Cheryl introduce herself, and I'll come back to my experience of having had COVID and how it changed my life. And thank you, Basia, for that sweet introduction. You're pretty amazing yourself.
Thank you so much.
Hi, yeah, so I'm Cheryl, and again, thank you for the introduction. So I don't know how long I've been a nurse. I've just suddenly gone out of my head as to how long I've done it. 15 years, 15 years I've been a nurse. Lifetime. And I work in a respiratory unit, so it's been interesting. I too have had COVID. I don't think quite in the way that Amy had COVID, but I have had it as well. And I suppose my intro would be that I would actually say 2020 has been the best year of my life so far, for many reasons. So yeah, that's me.
Wow, that just set the tone for this conversation. Both of your introductions, I just love it. I just love what I heard here. So, okay, so I would love to hear from both of you. What happened? What you experienced this year? Who would like to start?
Do you want me to?
I
No
can
one's
start.
volunteering. Do you want me to go first?
Sure. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, nobody ever wants to go first. Yeah, 2020. So Bash, I would totally agree with you. I'm actually hearing from people around me and on social media, lots of 2020 can go away, and less polite versions of that. People are really keen to see the back of it, and I understand that. It's been challenging in many ways, and I understand why people feel that way. I understand why society is still nervous, but for me, I've actually, it's not that I've not been part of that and I've not had those thoughts myself. It's just that I've probably taken more from it than I have had taken from me. And that's my sort of thought process with it. So work is one side of it for me. It has been incredibly challenging. I manage a team, and I have watched them endure the toughest of years for many reasons. They've been asked to work differently. They've been asked to change where they work, how they work. And quite often those changes would be 4, 5, 6 times a day. We would do one thing and then something new would come in. They've been wearing masks for 12-hour shifts, very rarely leaving on time, and dealing with an illness that I have personally never seen anything like. I would watch people come into hospital and deteriorate far quickly than any other illness I've ever seen in my career, and all with a degree of uncertainty, not really knowing how long it would last. We still know a really small amount about this in comparison to other illnesses. So that's been incredibly challenging. It's been incredibly challenging to lead them because, obviously in myself, I've had the same anxieties and stresses. Keeping people motivated is not an easy job at the best of times, but couple that with a pandemic and it's quite difficult. But I don't think about that as such. My takeaway from it is not what has actually been incredibly difficult, but actually what really beautiful and powerful things have come out of that. So I've watched people be resilient beyond a way that I think they even knew they were capable of. Somehow people keep showing up and keep doing their job, and they keep going and they motivate each other. I've watched members of staff help each other. I've watched them do incredible things for patients above and beyond what they would normally do. And I think my profession is one in which that attracts that kind of person that is going to go above and beyond. But just silly things like people were bringing in toiletries for people, and just doing things well beyond what you would call the call of duty to try and make this a nicer experience for their colleagues and for the patients that they're looking after. So that's been really inspirational for me to see every day. I've watched them be incredibly grateful for the fact that they do have jobs. We have friends and we know people who, I'm in a profession with job security in a pandemic, but not everybody's been in that position. and do things like we had a big drive in our hospital to donate, because we had a lot of donations given to the hospital, and we then did a donation back to food banks and things, because obviously their uptake was a lot higher. And to watch people still want to do something good when you wouldn't blame them for saying, do you know what, I'm really stressed out, I can't think of anybody beyond myself, is also inspirational. They've worked together in a way I've never seen before. We had a period where, as managers in the ward, we were actually all off at the same time with COVID, and it still ran. You know, these people just pulled together, and I saw things that remind me of what I hear when I hear stories of World War II and World War One, and I hear. I was actually looking up. I was trying to get badges for my team as a thank you for this year, and I actually found that these, you know, when I was on the search, one of these little lest we forget badges. And for me, I think you can apply that to 2020. You know, yes, it's been incredibly difficult. Yes, it's been a challenge, but let's not forget how, as a society, we pulled together. You know, people were here in the UK, they were standing on doorsteps, they were clapping for key workers, they were shopping for their neighbour who couldn't go out. You know, people were pulling together, they were reaching out to people. We were just put into a position as a society that actually brought out what I saw was the best in everybody. You know, it was actually really, it's actually been a really beautiful thing to witness from my perspective. People really looking out for each other. And then out of work for me, you know, on a personal level, and I think this is probably true of everybody, it gave me the very wonderful gift of time. And in my job, and Amy will probably attest to this, but we're always putting other people before ourselves. So to actually have time to think about myself and what I wanted in life was a real gift. And from that, I find my entire life has shifted and going in a different direction. And I, you know, realized I have a gift to help other people to find out, you know, in which direction their lives can go, and I can inspire people. I wouldn't have been in that position had I not slowed down, because I would have been going to work, socializing, going to work, socializing. So when I say 2020 has been a brilliant year, it's because the takeaways from it are far more wonderful than what I lost, you know. And I think if, you know, I could give one message to people from 2020, it's, you know, if we do spend our time and look at what you've gained from it, as opposed to what you've lost from it, appreciate it's not always easy to do that. But if you can, even just every day, think of something that you've gained from that day in 2020. Yeah, just trust me, you're not going to see this as a year where things were awful. You're actually going to see it as a real blessing of a year.
Yeah, that's really beautiful what you said at the end. And actually, I have to say, this is the very, like, you said it so much better than I did in the introduction. Like, this is the very aim of this whole project, is for people to actually pause for a little bit and reflect and try to find something. Because, and it's not really about like really try to dig in so deep and maybe you will find something and almost like make it up. It's not like, I can guarantee that it is there for every single person on this planet who have been affected, which means like pretty much everyone, right? That everyone, like, I think every adversity, every failure, anything that happens to us, that we see as happens to us, actually really happens for us. And if we just really think about it a little bit deeper, we always find it. You know, I love when I'm coaching my clients and when they're really afraid of failure. Everyone is in some way or another, right? We have a hard time with failure, and our minds tend to go to the most negative thing that happened and expect that if we fail again, we're going to experience the same or similar, and what it means about us. So when I talk to people about failure or about adversity, I love to ask them about the biggest failure that they've experienced in their life. And then we actually talk a little bit about it, and they always looking back, maybe if it was like a few years ago, when we talk about it, they're like, hold on, I actually didn't realize until now that we're talking about it, that afterwards my life maybe took turn, like positive turn. I didn't see it then, and I just keep going to that traumatic experience that happened, but actually moving forward a little bit, my life actually changed, or my life wouldn't have been the way it is right now. Maybe I wouldn't have met the same people, or whatever good has happened. They're only finding it when we start looking into it a little bit, and reflecting. So exactly what you said, Cheryl, like that's just, yeah, that's just the main message of this whole project. So thank you for speaking it out.
Oh, most welcome.
That was beautifully said.
Thank you, Amy.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Amy.
Yes. My goodness, where to start? Well, first of all, there was something that you said, Cheryl, that really resonated with me. And that was, this year is so much more about what it's given us versus what has been taken from us. And I think that that statement offers so much perspective. That's really beautiful. I'm really glad you said that. And Basia, you said something that really spoke to me too, and that was, it's not things that happen to us, but it's things that happen for us. And both of those statements really resonate with me, because they're, as you know, like yourselves and everybody else, there's moments where I'm like, I can't wait for this year to be over. I'm not gonna lie, I'm only human. I have no false illusions about being this perfectly graceful person. I'm not, right? So I'm like, this can be done. I'm done with it. Let's get it over with. But on the other hand, the lessons that have come out of this year are the things that I really, really want to hold on to. So I experienced COVID. I am not going to go into a big song and dance about it, but basically it left me ill to a point that I wasn't able to care for myself. And that was really humbling, because I moved out when I was 17 years old, and I've been fiercely independent all my life. So then to go from being a nurse who leads a team like yourself and cares for other people and manages really sensitive, delicate aspects of their lives, to not being able to take a shower was a super humbling experience. So that's one of the most profound experiences I've had in my life, was not to be able to care for myself, and just the humility that comes with that. And it gave me so much insight. And I'm sure, Cheryl, you can relate to this. We don't know what it feels like to be a patient until we are a patient. We can read about it, we can talk about it, we can journal about it, we can do whatever. Until you have walked that path, you really do not have the appreciation for what a patient's voice truly means. And there were times that I felt voiceless. And so that was also really humbling for me. And a good chunk of my career was spent in the intensive care, intubating people, getting them on a ventilator, looking after them in really critical situations. And so I'm guilty of this, and you working in respiratory, you may have overheard this. It's so easy to say to someone, just relax, just breathe. Yeah. So that was a huge realization for me. Just breathe when you're fighting for every breath is the last thing that anyone on this planet wants to hear. And again, these things seem really benign and very innocent, and we're not malicious creatures as nurses. We're out there, we're trying to care for people, and we're doing our best. but it really brings an awareness to the things that we say that I did not have before. And I'm not so big that I can't admit that. And so the lessons that came out of this year for me were around humility and my role as a nurse, and how important it is for me to advocate for people, especially when they're not able to do that for themselves. And perspective, like, I know I'm not special, that's the entire world. We've all gained perspective, but wow, there's gaining perspective, and then there's like being punched in the face with it, right? So it's like, here, bam, here's some perspective for you. So yeah, and I'm just trying to think, there's so many things that are coming to me, so many lessons, but the other thing was because I was so sick, my life was taken to a basic function of one breath at a time. And, you know, we all think we're super powerful and we can control it. Well, I do anyways. I've got control over my life. I'm going to do this and this and this and this and this. And yeah, it doesn't work like that. So that was really good for me. It was really healthy for me because it got me out of yesterday and out of tomorrow and just right into today, into this very moment, into this breath. And that was probably one of the most potent lessons of all. And it made me realize that nothing really matters. The things that we think matter, money, my job. And when I say that, I'm 100% acknowledging my privilege. I live in an amazing country where there are resources, where I have an employer who has supported me through this illness and carried me. So I know my privilege. I'm not denying that at all. But it doesn't change the fact that the things that we think matter, they don't matter. Right? Nothing matters. When you're taken down to this basic function of life, money, your work, where you live, none of those things matter. The possessions that you own, it becomes about the relationships and the people. And Cheryl, those examples that you shared of people bringing in toiletries, staff rallying for one another. I had a beautiful gift from the universe. I've got a tree in my front yard that somehow this idea came to me. I was on quarantine for a month. So no one could come into the home, and I certainly couldn't go out until I tested negative. So I thought, I was staring at the tree and I thought, what if I got people to tie ribbons on it just to keep my spirits up? And so that evolved into more, but I have never experienced so much love in my life. And so for me to say 2020 was a bad year, yeah, there were aspects of it that were bad, but that would be such a huge dismissal of the immense love and generosity of spirit that I've both been the recipient of, and hopefully in some small way been able to give out as well. I feel like I'm rambling, so I'm going to stop there.
You actually, I had in my mind, I had different questions that I wanted to ask you, but you both like started answering them anyway. So you're like clearly reading my mind, but that's really good. That's really amazing. I just actually, I would love you, Amy, to speak a little bit more about, just to give people who are watching and listening a little bit of like a time frame and perspective of like when you became ill and like time frame when things happened. And also I would like you to speak a little bit about this tree thing, because you really skimmed over it as if like I don't really want to brag too much, but I actually, something really beautiful, like beautiful contribution from your side came from you, from this whole project. So I would love you to speak to it a little bit more.
Okay. So I got sick with COVID at the end of March, and I didn't test negative until the end of April. So there was an entire month in which I spent a short amount of time in the hospital because I wasn't able to care for myself, which, is kind of interesting, because when I told people that one of the first questions people would ask me was, were you ventilated? And I was like, no, but I couldn't shower. Like, does that count for something? So anyways, it's just interesting, people's perspectives. But when I came out of the hospital, like I said, there's a tree out front, a willow tree in my yard. And I was spending a lot of time either in my bedroom or on the sofa in the living room because I was so fatigued. And I would look out at it every day. And like I said, this gift, this idea just came to me from the universe that said, well, what if you got people to tie ribbons on this tree, Amy? And what if that just cheered you up a little bit and helped you get through this time? And so I did. I thought, what the heck? I'm just going to send out a couple of messages and say, hey, could y'all come over and tie some ribbons on the tree? It would make me feel better, right? And if you know me, and like most nurses, Cheryl, we're great at offering the help. We're not very good necessarily at asking for help. And it sounds like such a small thing, but that was really hard for me. It was really hard for me to send out that message, but I did. And the response was so overwhelming that like my verbal illustration of it is not going to do it justice. So it started out as a WhatsApp group with my closest friends and family. And so every day people were coming and tying ribbons on my tree. And it really did, those ribbons really did carry me through the darkest days, because it was so lonely and so sad, for lack of a better term, to be trapped inside and to be, weak as a kitten, not able to do anything for myself. And then I started thinking about, you live in a great country. What about people with much more frail infrastructures, medical infrastructures? How are they coping? Like, you're, sitting here bitching and moaning about, how your life is so bad, but what about others? And so I thought, well, maybe I'll donate money for every ribbon tied. And that was before things exploded and went a little crazy. So then I put a sign up saying that what was going on. And so about approximately 500 people tied ribbons, either on my tree or took a photo of a ribbon that they had tied and sent it to me, pardon me. And I don't know if it was a knee-jerk reaction in response to being so grateful for my life, but I decided to just empty the content of my savings. So whatever money I had in my savings, I just decided to donate it to a couple of 3 causes that are close to my heart. And yeah, I don't know, it just it felt pretty amazing to give. And the things that people did during this time with the tree, not only did they come and tie ribbons, I had people praying for me that I have never met. Okay, so there was a gospel singing group that a friend of mine halfway across the country had organized, and this gospel singing group, bless their hearts, prayed and sang for me every single day until I tested negative. and they still email me and they still think about me. And I'm so touched. Like, I can't believe it. And people were baking me cookies and they were baking me cakes and they were dropping off stuff. And I thought, shoot, I'm still in my Christmas pajamas. I'm going to get so fat. I'm never going to be able to fit into normal clothes again. But it was like all this beauty and excitement and innocence and love, just like volcanoes of love exploding everywhere. Like, it was nuts. So yeah, that was this tree. And it was pretty amazing. I don't know what else to say about it.
That's beautiful. I just love it, because you could have just focused on yourself, on, like, there are many people who would just, I don't know, feel sorry for themselves, and there's no judgment, because actually if you're hit with something so serious, because it was really life-threatening, then it would just make sense to just focus on yourself and try to get back to shape, like to normal, but you were still, just your values, like everything that you are was still there, still like giving and worrying about other people, or caring about other people, and just wanting to show your love even when
I
you
am
weren't
not
able
gonna
to care
lie.
for them hands-on, kind of thing.
Thank you. I love that you think that I'm such a fabulous human being. I have had moments of charity remorse, and I'm not gonna lie, okay? So I'm not gonna sit here and pretend to be something I'm not. There's been moments where I'm like, should I have done that? Like, maybe I should have paused for a moment. Maybe I don't know, am I gonna need that money? But I was like, if the universe can save your life, it can give you some more money, so not to worry about it. But yeah, I never pretend to be somebody I'm not. There have been moments where I've been like, shit, what have I done? Right? But yeah, the yield, the ripple effect has been far greater than anything I could ever imagine in my wildest dreams. Like, people showing up on my lawn to do a ribbon dance just to cheer me up. And I was like, I'm sorry, do we know each other? I'm on the inside behind the glass and they're on the lawn dancing, and I'm like, well, hey, it's a party, and anyone who knows me I like to throw a good party, so let it be.
I saw this when society locked down way back in the beginning. Everybody just kind of went, well, what can we do to help? We can't, almost like that. For me, acts of service are things that actually really fulfill you. I think they're so important. I think it should be part of everybody's life to do something to give back, because it actually just helps your soul. I think. But it was amazing that, in those moments, like I'd said, we all had job security and people were sitting at home with really uncertain futures, and yet they weren't necessarily going straight to that. They were going to, how can we help? What can we do? How can we support other people? And that's just phenomenal. Like, that's, for me, 2020 is, that's what it's shown us. It's shown us just how marvelous people are. I'm so inspired by your team. It's like, that's just a really good visual of this, but it's just a complete representation of everything that I've seen this year from people all over the world. That's just that's amazing story. That's like, that makes my heart happy. And, yeah, and what you said about us not being able to ask for help is rang true, and I see that in my team a lot. And they often work until they break because they don't necessarily know how to ask for help, because it's not something, it's almost like we have to be strong for everybody else, you know. And I see it in, you know, I don't want to generalize, but mothers tend to do this as well. You know, everybody comes before themselves and, you know, give, and never really look. And to be able to have that experience where you've been completely humbled and you've had to ask for help yourself again, going forward, this is only going to make you a more incredible nurse, because you can resonate with people so much more, and be able to, you know, actually say, I know. I know certainly when I had COVID, I don't know if you can hear, but I'm still short of breath. And I actually said to my team, I now know what it's like to be out of breath going to the bathroom. And, you know, before I would probably be quite frustrated with my patients because I'd have like 300 things to do and they take forever to walk to the bathroom. And now I'm like, just take your time, because because I can understand and resonate. And being sick is you really hit that spot on to say it's very humbling to need to ask for help, but to also be able to be in that position where it puts everything in perspective, and it really does. And for me, that this whole year has done that for everybody. It's, you know, just really simple things like we're never going to take for granted. Well, I hope. And this is where my thing of lest we forget. Let's never take for granted being able to hug each other, and just pop in for a cup of coffee with somebody. You know, those things that we literally took for granted are now have just been highlighted this year as being so important.
Yeah.
So yeah, one inspirational story. I love it.
Oh, thank you, you guys.
Cheryl, I wanted you to actually speak about something else, because you are an amazing nurse and leader, and you know you're doing so much, but you're also doing something else. So I don't think I mentioned here, but Cheryl is my client. We do coaching. We work as a together, and you have been, I feel so inspired every time we talk, and I just feel really inspired by what you do on top of your day job, how you're inspiring people, the project that you came up with, the cause that you're working for, and how you have been helping people outside of your normal role in your in your day job. So I would love you to speak about that a little bit.
Yeah, I completely forgot to talk about myself.
The reason why I'm also asking about it, because it's like, I believe that this year, from what you shared with me, this year, because you had more time this year, you have been able to focus on this and actually listen to your calling, if you want to call it this way, right?
I maybe I think of it as like a soul purpose, and it's my belief that we're all on earth to do something extraordinary, and I watch lots of people do it in many different ways, and I always thought that I was here on earth to be a nurse and that was my calling, but 2020 slowed me down and showed me that actually there were other things I could do. So yeah, and I don't like to be bored, so so do you know, it's really funny, I don't even know where it came from. It was just an inspired thought that came along. So I suppose as a background, I'm raising money for a mental health charity. And as a background, I spent, it's like 16 years of my life with a mental health problem, and finally got myself to a place through a lot of hard work and a lot of brilliant people supporting me, where it doesn't really have an impact on my life anymore. And I thought that I wanted to do something to give back. And so one of the things that caused me to think up what I'll tell you about in a minute, was to be able to pay it forward. You know, I'm very fortunate, I'm very well supported, I'm well educated, and I was able to use that to my advantage. But not everybody's in that position. There's lots of people out in the world that have terrible problems with their mental health and just can't seem to pull themselves out. So to raise money for a charity that does that was in the same way as Amy did things close to her heart, that was, you know, kind of really resonates with me. One of the things that helped me with my mental health was walking. I'm walking out in nature, and I had a very turbulent year, and within the following year from that, I did a lot of kind of long distance walking, and I loved it. I mean, I hated it because I got blisters and I was tired, and you know, the whole time you're walking, you're like, why am I walking so many miles? This is absolutely crazy. But it causes you to go in yourself and dig deep and pull from something that you don't know you've got, you know. Long distance walking for me made me realize how resilient I am, how strong I am, and how I can just keep going. And a really beautiful metaphor for life, just one foot in front of the other, and eventually you get there. And so I had this idea that I needed to walk further than what I'd done before. So I found a beautiful route through the Highlands of Scotland. It's 550 miles. So in May, yeah, I'm crazy too. But in May, I'm going to walk this solo. And obviously, having had COVID and being out of breath, I'm not able to train at the moment, which is quite frustrating for me. And it's also made me lose my therapy. You know, I would normally be up a mountain every week, and I've not been able to do that. But I actually had a really good conversation with, I'm working with a really inspirational personal trainer who does a lot of endurance events herself. And, you know, she does a lot raising awareness for mental health herself. You know, she's a really inspiring woman. And I had a conversation with her, and I'd actually said that, you know, I was getting frustrated, but we both kind of know that when I'm actually doing this in May, it might not be in the time frame in which I'd originally thought. It might be slower, but I'll still do it. But I'll also be grateful for the fact that I'm able to do it, because as it stands right now, I know I couldn't go out and do this tomorrow. So, you know, we have some time there. But yeah, that was my my thing. But it grew arms and lengths, a bit like your tree, you know, where I just thought, well, I would raise a bit of money for charity and I would go for a walk and it would be lovely. But it's actually caused me to share my story, connect with people who either have a similar story or, you know, or something else that's affected them. I've started sharing what happened to me, how I overcame it, and I'm now helping other people as to how they can overcome things in their life. And I had no idea when I dreamt it up that it would, you know, probably like yourself, I thought, well, this is just nice, it's good for me, it'll do something just to pay it forward. And that was really the extent of my thought on it. But I think when you find something like that, like your tree, like my walk, that is something that, yeah, speaks to your soul, then actually everything that comes out of it is just incredible. So it's just expanded and expanded way beyond what I thought. You know,
That's wonderful.
yeah, it's been so
It's
interesting.
really,
And
really inspiring. Really inspiring. And
Yeah.
what came up to me, I mean, actually, both of you said this thing just in different way. Amy said, I just realized it's just one breath at a time. And you said one foot in front of the other. And it's just this beautiful metaphor of how we should be living life, I think. And I think very often we miss it because we're already like, you know, million steps ahead, and we want to know and control everything ahead of us, and we want to know like where we're getting exactly and what we're going to do to get there, all the like million steps that we need to take, instead of actually just focusing on this next step and this next breath that we need to take, because we need to take it. And if we don't take this one, we're not going to take the next one. It's just so, I think it's so simple, but it's so powerful to remember. And what also, you know, came to me with your projects and your causes and what you did was, it was very much the effect of slowing down. You know, you were in one way or the other, both of you were paused by life, like you were forced by life to do it. And you had to do it. And this is where your ideas, your inspiration came from. and the changes started happening. And this is what happens when we slow down. We connect with our soul. Like, that's the simplest way I can put it. We connect with our true nature, with our spirit, with our divinity, and from there are always just tremendous things that come up and come out of it that we just really wouldn't have maybe created or think of, or we would have maybe, our wisdom always gives us hints and little messages, but it's so subtle. And when we're so busy and sped up in our heads, overthinking everything, the intellect is noisy, can be really noisy, right? And it's sometimes just, it's so noisy that we just ignore or can't hear those little messages from our wisdom that just knocks very gently and says, how about this? How about this? How about that? And only when we really slow down, when we start to reflect, or when we're made to slow down and reflect, we start to hear it and listen.
Cheryl, that is so amazing. You're incredible.
Thank you. Well, let's see if I manage it. I keep saying this to people of like, I mean, I know I will, but yeah. And and I've had this conversation with Basia, because I was like, oh, I found it, in the beginning, I found it very weird when people would say things like, that's inspiring. And I was just like, but I'm just, an ordinary person. What's, what's inspiring in that? But I think
I'll tell you why I'm laughing after.
Okay, but all the people that have inspired me along the way, they're just people too. They're just people with stories, and even your story that you've shared tonight, I'm like, oh wow, okay, that's phenomenal. So, I just think as human beings, we've probably all got something within us that is. In fact, we do. I don't know what I'm saying. Probably we do. We all have something within us that is really inspirational to people, and really empowering for them. And exactly what Basia had said, because life slowed down, I was in a position to see what that was for me. And I've seen lots of other people do that as well. And it sounds like, yourself, Amy, that's exactly the same for you, is it's made you gain a little perspective and quiet your mind and just see what's important for you. And from that space, what you create is so powerful. I've loved 2020. I'm a big 2020 advocate now.
Yeah.
I wasn't when it began, that's for sure.
I can certainly relate to that. I was chuckling because, I hadn't been on social media for 7 years. There were some events that took place in my life prior to 2020 that made me walk around with a big sense of shame and failure. And I sort of went off of social media. So COVID and the tree is what brought me back onto social media. And it gave me the courage to allow myself to be seen in a way that I hadn't allowed myself to be seen. But I was chuckling because people would read my posts and write things like, oh, you're so inspiring. And I'm like, I've been called many things, like inspiring is not one of them, right? So it just kind of made me laugh again, just going back to that place of like, am I don't know, like I'm just trying to be me. So, and I think you hit a really beautiful gem there when you said it's in all of us, every one of us.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of days where I don't feel very inspiring. In fact, I don't feel very likable at all. So I don't try to pretend to be someone I'm not. Like there's days that I'm just pissed off because I'm pissed off. Like,
but that's life, isn't it? I think many people struggle with the fact that we can't be happy all the time, or we can't feel good all the time. And I think a lot of I would say a lot of mental health problem from my observation come from that, because we think like the moment something happens in our lives and we don't have a really good time with it, we think that we first of all we try to change it because because of this discomfort, right? So we try to change it. We make up a story about like what it means about us, about our life, and then what's the worst case scenario that's probably going to happen, that never happens, but we usually tend to go there, and we just go quite deep into it. And the more we try to get out of it, like force ourselves out of it, the deeper sometimes we get into it, because we just imply that this whatever is happening that's actually shouldn't have place in our life, that we should just always feel good and be happy, and everything should be all like blissful and amazing. And that's not what life is about. And I think if we felt always good and amazing, we wouldn't even know that we have a good, like that life is good, because we wouldn't have any reference point, any comparison, right? So I think that's the beauty of life. And um, and instead of trying to turn things and think ourselves positive, that when we don't feel really positive, we should just drop it. We should just accept that this is what's happening, and know that the nature of life is such that it always goes back to normal and to good and to amazing if we just let it happen.
And I don't know about you, Cheryl or Basia, but one of the big things that came out for me this year was, just how comical it is that we take ourselves so seriously. You know, it's just like I'm really serious. I've got these goals and I've got this little plan and I'm on this little mission, and along comes an event like COVID or something to disrupt your whole life, and you're like, you're right, I mean nothing. Right? So it was that whole humility and not taking yourself so seriously. And I'm with you when you say you're a 2020 advocate. Like, I've had more laughs and more joy and experienced more love and generosity of spirit in this year than I can recall that I've experienced in any other year of my life. And even this conversation and meeting you, seeing you, and hearing about your story, and that you're going to go and walk 550 miles, like, that is, I'm totally in awe of your journey.
Yeah,
Thank
it's
you.
beautiful.
Do you know,
Maybe.
Amy said something amazing. I just pick up, but I think you said it way back in the beginning, and then you kind of touched on it there, the humility. And as nurses, we see this all the time, and there's been studies on this, but obviously we look after people that are dying all the time, and none of the people, when they look back on their lives, they don't think about like what you call the things we take so seriously. They don't regret not achieving that job or that income or getting that car or the material things and the sort of the superficial things. It's about how much they cared for the people around them, the relationships. And you'd kind of actually said that in your story, but even if 2020 you are still sitting here going, well, that's wonderful for those guys that they had a really good 2020. It's been awful for me. Even if that's been your experience, you know that it will put in perspective. So even if that's your takeaway, that 2020 is just awful, that's okay, because 2021 will be beautiful, and you know that it will. You'll always have that year as a contrast of, I don't know, the year not to be. You'll always have that contrast.
Yeah.
But yeah, it has put everything in perspective, and I think if you really think about it and slow down, which is what it's caused, actually, that I guess you just realize what people who are dying, those people that are taking their last breaths, they're not they're not regretting the small stuff that that we get so caught up with, and that sort of seriousness that you're talking about. So so yeah, even if you think 2020 has been absolutely horrendous for you, that's still a blessing, even if that's your experience of it.
That's beautiful. That's so powerful what you said, Cheryl. Yeah. So, ladies, my last question to you before we finish this amazing conversation that I'm so grateful for is, what are you creating right now, and what are you looking forward to continuing in 2021?
Wow.
Did I just put you on the spot there?
What's that?
Did I just put you on the spot there?
No, I just was thinking about the question. I don't know that I'm creating anything new or different, but I feel that this year has allowed me to put forth a more authentic version of myself. You know, like I spoke about, allowing myself to be seen in a way that I hadn't allowed myself to be seen. Like, gosh, I've been on television crying my head off with my roots showing. Like, that's pretty cajones. Like, you've got to have some serious lack of filter or some good self-confidence to get on TV and like allow yourself to be seen like that. But I don't know, I just don't care anymore. I'm like, whatever, So I think for me, it's not so much what I'm creating, it's I'm just allowing myself to be who I always was and who I am. And just I screw up all the time. And when I'm aware of it, I acknowledge it and I apologize. And I just try to do my best, and just really owning that, it feels really good. It takes a whole load of pressure off, because, the previous version of myself always woke up every morning and had something to prove, So
that's actually huge. And you actually said, oh no, I'm not really doing anything, I'm just gonna be me. I think this is so powerful. This is such a powerful thing to do moving forward, to be you. It's not just being you, it's being you, like, own it. That's beautiful. I love it because it's a huge change from having all these goals and putting all the pressure on you and trying to be, and as you said, trying to prove something, to actually experiencing this freedom. That's priceless. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Amy.
Thanks, Basia.
Cheryl, what about you?
Well, I'm creating a lot, but yeah, I don't fully know where it's going. I just feel that I've unlocked something. I've realized where my strengths are in slowing down, and if I were to not create anything and just continue with the mindset that 2020 has given me, and continue in the role I'm in, and just perform my challenge, then that in of itself would be amazing. I think I'm going to go on and create a new career, helping people to do what I've done. I think that's going to involve possibly coaching and motivational speaking. But even if that doesn't come to fruition, that I have no expectation of anything, because first of all, I think what's meant to be will be. And also, like Amy had said, I don't have a need to prove anything to myself or to anybody else. I don't have some goal, must achieve. even if, you know, 2020 has caused me to be a different person in work. And even if I just went into work every day and showed up in that space, I would be so much better at my job than I was before. So that would be enough. You know, we shall see where 2021 goes. Yeah, I guess what I'm creating is what I think we should all be creating, and just taking the lessons that we've learned in this year and keep going with them. And lest we forget, yeah, it keeps coming back into my head, but lest we forget is so powerful. Don't forget what this year has taught you, and take that forward and use that. And if that's all you do in life, what an amazing achievement.
Mm. Thank you. That's really beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you. Gosh, ladies, I'm so inspired by your stories, by everything you shared, by the lessons you learned, and by everything you're creating. Yes, and your advice to others. It's really beautiful, and I'm so grateful and thankful that we could actually share this space right now together, and that I can share your message and your insights with my broader community here on Facebook. And I'm really hoping that you know, people will find something there for themselves, get inspired, even if it's one person, even if one person watches this and find some hope or some inspiration or some new ideas. That will be amazing. I think our job is done and it's been really worth it, right? So before we finish, I just want to say, for anyone who's been watching till now, thank you so much for tuning in. And please feel free to share any thoughts, any insights, any questions you have below this recording. Or if you feel like you would prefer to actually chat privately, feel free to reach out to me. I don't know, are you ladies okay if anyone wanted to maybe find out even more about your experience? Is it okay if they reach out to you, or you're not okay? Sorry for putting you on the spot. It's okay, yeah. So please feel free to share your thoughts and reach out. And if you have a story that you would like to share and you would like to be on this show in the conversation with me, please get in touch with me. And also, what I wanted to share is I would like to start a thread, one of those threads that happen on Facebook. I would love for people to share their just like one experience, how they've experienced something and how it turned their life, or what they've learned, what they maybe started, what they're creating now. And if you are inspired to do so, please drop their hashtag blessing in disguise 2020, and let's make it viral. Let's inspire each other and other people. All right, guys, ladies, thank you so much once again. And I really look forward to seeing what you're going to create in 2021.
So great to meet you, Cheryl.
And you, Amy, thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.